Hi there, Randy Green. Let us continue. I have now rearranged the text material a little bit so it is more clear what I'm talking about. On page 5, I have made the kind of the list of, or the buildup of the interfered energy system. So we have on the highest level, we have the original transformative energy system as it's shown on page 4. Then we have the holographic overlay linking our transformative energy system and its template to the artificial 4D and the artificial 5D reality fields under the colonizers and the fallen ones from Atlantis. That holographic overlay system is shown on page 16. That's the holographic overlay with its artificial inserted Trinity fields that are tying us to the artificial programs, the event program, the ESP, and whatever that has been there. Then we have the body elemental, that is CRNA, re-engineered TG, linked to the 4th cycle artificial programs, and the prohibiting technologies. We have the chakra system as its inserted regress genetics, linked to the body elemental, linked to the holographic overlay, and is part of that harvesting technology that are taking our activation potentials from us and are utilizing this on artificial or alternate reality timelines. Then we have the mental field that's connected to the artificial 5th dimension and the frequency fence. We have the emotional field that's connected to the older grids that fell during the timeline event. That's the underworld, aka what bridges from the subconscious into the distortion fields into either the artificial 4th or the underworld that's connected to that, as well as what we call the prohibiting technologies, the astral barrier and the reality programs that runs our emotional field, and then the biofield that has connection points to the abyss, aka the bridge between the quantum fields and the artificial 4th. Again, when the biofield, all depending on where we are, if we are imprisonment, is directly connected to the abyss. If we're enslavement, then we are bridging from the quantum field into the artificial 4th. If you're a part of some of the factions that wants to work with the Atlantean projects, then you go from the quantum fields into the artificial 5th. So again, there's not one fit all. And then I go into the challenges, the individual challenges and the clearing work, which we talked about in the previous podcast. And here I will continue getting rid of the chakra system. So where and how do we then get rid of the chakra system? Well, the first step is that to get rid of the chakra system. So the first step of getting rid of the chakra system, if we have activated this in any forms of energy work, that means for those of us who've been working with it as part of a spiritual teaching system, or you might have had it in a previous lifetime but don't know you have it, but are for some odd reason feel compelled to work with it, or in some of your inner work and clearing work, you stumble upon what we could say the need to clear out the access points that typically are associated with the chakra system, even though that they tie, we could say the chakras are technically tying the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system to the elemental, to the body elemental. So these are the access points, and I have a description below. I also recommend that you listen to my YouTube podcast series on the chakra system that is on the Higher Order Density 1 Work Institute, as well as my approach to the Buddhist teachings that are on the Whole Academy YouTube channel. So you have that as part of your understandings here. So in that, I have explained what the chakra system technically is, using the Wikipedia and the general sciences within the spiritual communities of what the chakra system is. Here, my approach is somewhat different. For me, it's something that we need to get rid of and not something that we need to continue working with. All depending on what system you work within with the chakras, one of the most important things is to understand that it is a nodal point between the peripheral nervous system, the central nervous system, that is connecting the body elemental to our physical form. So that means that the fields that are connected via the chakras are both tying into the biofield. There are 7 etheric quote-unquote chakras. These are the bridges between the body elemental and tying it to the biofield. The etheric chakras, they are connected to the meridian system that can be worked within, for instance, acupuncture. There, the meridian system is the holographic network in our physicality that allows us to have a physical form. That's the biofield or the morphogenetic field that are deriving energy from either the artificial fourth dimension into the quantum fields, into the atomic structure that and the molecular structure that is the foundation of our physicality. The biofield is between it's right connected right there to the quantum field before it kind of goes into the molecular structure. So it's between the atomic structure and the molecular structure. That's where the biofield exists. It's connected to the magnetic field of our planet and is fueled by the magnetic field of our planet as well. So the meridian system technically gets its energies from the connection points it has to the magnetic field of our planet, and that's why our physicality is not only affected by the energies that are on our planet as well as what's in the planetary magnetic field. And I touched ground with this in some of my YouTube videos on the Future Humanities YouTube channel, where the one I did yesterday is weather modification a good idea, where I talk about how the frequency fence connects to our mental field, the astral barrier or the human resonance connects to our emotional field, the planetary magnetic field connects to our biofield. So by that we understand the cellular structure, as I talked about in the transition sciences. We have 3 levels in our atomic structure. We have the proton that's connected to the human resonance that's connected to the sun. We have the human resonance is the intermediary field between the solar energies and our physicality, as well as what's going on our planet. We have the electron that's connected to the electromagnetic field or the electric field. The magnetic field around our planet is both electromagnetic, but mainly the electric currents that goes with the upholding of the architecture of our planetary system. It is connected to whatever comes out from space. It's connected to all types of electric energies, including some of the electric energies of the higher levels of the sun that is electromagnetic as well. So the proton is mainly to the magnetic energies, the electrons to the electric energies of the planetary setting, because these are the processes that goes with. That's why we only have 4% that's technically in the understanding of the frequency spectrum that goes with our biology. Then we have the neutron field that's connected to the quantum field that goes into the neutron field, the point zero field, or the point zero field. Let's keep it that way, where everything is in a steady state. That's the bridge into the artificial fourth. So we're energized by that. And with that, we also understand that everything that's in this planet, on this planet, we are interconnected with it via the joint field that we're all composed of. So that means that we kind of go with that understanding that our biofields connect to the planetary field, our emotional fields connect to the human resonance, which means we affect the weather and vice versa. And then the mental fields connect to the frequency fence, which is being altered all the time. And that's connected to the artificial fifth, the human resonances, and is connected to the artificial fourth layers of the sun that is now decomposing, connect to the artificial fourth dimensional realities that are now falling apart due to the falling apart of the prohibiting technologies and the old setup of the colonizers, which is why they have left. New things are coming in. Everything changes all the time. With that, we also understand that the chakra system is the bridging system between all these different layers, and it is composed of 3 layers of different fields. The etheric field that is connected to the magnetic field of our planet, the neutron field, the quantum field, the morphogenetic field, the architecture behind our physical form, hence the biofield, the meridian system. The meridian system bridges into the peripheral nervous system that is part of our emotional field. The emotional field is fueled by the human resonance energies that are fueled by the artificial fourth that is fueled by the energies of the sun that no longer is there. So that's why it's collapsing. So things need to change there too. And then we have the mental field layers, the chakras that are there that are connected to the frequency fence. So we have 7 etheric fields, 7 etheric chakras that are connected to the biofield. We have 7 emotional chakras chakras that are connected to the peripheral nervous system and the meridian system, tying it into the morphogenetic field. I talk about these interconnectednesses in the transition sciences on the advanced work with the emotional field. I'm here adding new layers to the information. And then we have 5 chakras that are connected to the mind field, the mental field, that keeps us solidified into the frequency fence reality programs. Once we begin to dissolve these using the upper triangle clearing processes, which you were taught in Taurology as well as in the template sciences, reconstructing our mind field to work with the higher order sciences, we then begin to shift into the artificial 5th dimension, where we have the cube technology, which we then need to clear out and then collapse the 5 chakra points that are connected to our mind field, and then reconnect it to the higher order energy system, the Syrian genetic levels. And that's why the 5 chakras are connected to the artificial 5th dimension that mainly holds holographic residual entities of the timeline event that were blasted into these spheres of energy during the timeline event, were reconfigured into dark beings due to the invertedness of their genetics and lost the ability to have physical form. These beings were original Syrians. So that's also important to understand what the project of Atlantis was about. So in a way, you can say we are still connected to the 3rd cycle of our biofield. We are still connected to the 4th cycle, even though it's artificial, and the reseeding of our emotional field. And we're technically still connected to the 5th dimension, even though it's the fallen levels of our reality field that most are connected to, or completely cube technologies from where the original 5th dimensional capacities are being used in artificial 5th dimensions that are fueling the fallen timelines of Atlantis. So we're here having that huge different types of spectra of energies. And just to throw it in the mix as well, the artificial 5th is connected to the Syrian Bs, the artificial 4th is connected to the Syrian As, and whatever goes with the biofield is the magnetic field, and that is mainly what we could call all sorts of critters that are part of the distortion fields that are part of our planet. So with that understanding, we also begin to understand, okay, the chakra system is not necessarily our best friend. So the first step of getting rid of it, if we have activated it, is to clear out what we have put into it. So that means mantras, symbols, images, frequencies that we have used, color frequencies to activate our chakras, right, must be eradicated or transformed, given that they are part of the less functional programs, simulating and activation and ascension paradigm. And that's why most of us got into the chakra system. Oh yeah, let me ignite my heart chakra and my solar plexus chakra and my hara chakra and my root chakra and my throat chakra and my 3rd eye and these kind of things. And I talked about in the integration class 6, where I talk about the typical understanding of the chakra system and how we can transform that into higher forms of energy by eradicating, working with, especially the 5 mental chakras should be worked with, going from purple to blue to golden to white, and then see it disperse and evaporate. The emotional chakras, it's a good idea first to transform them into kind of a golden, pinkish, magenta kind of thing, and then see them become completely golden, then see them become white, and then see them disperse. But don't do that until you have activated your heart field, the heart vortex, as well as have begun the processes of igniting the golden orb or the golden sphere of light in the middle of your head. So there's a lot of steps that must be taken. And I talk about this work in the integration class 6, which you can get for free on my website, as well as part of some of the transition science course material. I talk about that there too. I talk a little bit about that in the Buddhist teaching systems, as well as in the podcast series I did on the chakra system. There's much more that can be said on that, but I'm deliberately not going further into that, because then I will give it energy, and then I'll be completely sucked back into the older layers of my own chakra system, which I have dissolved. But since we have the configuration for it, it can always be reactivated. So once we have done something cleared it out, we let it go. We don't look at it again. We turn the other cheek. We segregate ourselves from it as far as it's cleared out, and what is left is only what we call the skeleton of it, what is part of the architecture, that since it's not being fueled and since we have dissolved all of the energetic content and it no longer has any viability rate, then it should begin to disperse and evaporate. Or we could do it ourselves, constantly looking in and checking, okay, between my peripheral nervous system, that's part of my emotional field, and my mental field that holds the neuroelectric, the central nervous system, sorry about that. Is there an energy field that's being created? Does it hold parasites? Does it link up to the distortion fields? Is it something that's intersecting there, creating certain thought forms and certain emotional processes? Do we get overly emotional? Do we have sorts of old energies we thought we got rid of? Have they resurfaced? Are there new emotional patterns that are being tricked? All of these triggered are all part of saying that the chakra system, or the bridges between the lower fields and the higher order energy system, are now being clogged by what we call older content that needs to be cleared out. And that's an ongoing process. Even though we remove it, it will resurface until we get the code layers. But even though we get to the code layers, there will still be little codes here and there that are holographic, holding the content of the unity or the field as it used to be. If we are put onto new timelines, I talked about that in the advanced clearing work, it can be replicated and spawned to life again, using the cube technology to do so. So we are always in the clearing processes. That means that we need to know the details of our chakra system, which lives it has been connected to, how we have utilized it, for what we have utilized it, to gain energy, to activate or combine the peripheral nervous system with the central nervous system, to combine the mind field and the heart field. Have we used the chakra system for that? Should we then disperse it or transform it and create the unified field that the chakra system can be transformed into? Or should we let go of it and completely disperse it and only rely on the vortices of the holographic architecture that is the basic blueprint from all of the races that are part of our solar system, and onward and so forth? So it demands a lot in this, and you will say, how am I supposed to know all of this? Well, that's the catch-22 again. This relies on the higher order senses, but you can't activate your higher order senses until you understand what you are to activate your higher order senses into. If you just think, oh, it's just being clairvoyant, well, then you just activate it into the distortion fields, and you have to have the clairvoyant abilities to work your way through the distortion fields. But you need to know there's more to it than that. And that's what we're doing here. The understanding of your higher order senses are part of your energy and clearing work. They should be used for that, not to become some kind of circus artist or some kind of reader or clairvoyant reader that goes out and read the emotional fields of others, which will lead to a greater distortion in your own field. The clairvoyant abilities are technically to be utilized into the understanding of sensing energy, changes in energies that goes with our vibrational field. And whenever something enters our vibrational field, we should be able to perceive it and work with it and transform it. And that's what the clairvoyant abilities will change into, the abilities that are working well with the vibrational field. They grow out of the vibrational field. But the clairvoyant abilities there arise because we have an activation going on in a vibrational field that then ripples into our emotional field, that then ripples into a peripheral nervous system, that then ripples into an oversensitivity to our surroundings, which we will feel, and then eventually learn to work with this and have the understanding of this oversensitive sensibility, so to speak, where we can sense things that most people can't sense. And if we then at the same time develop our emotional field to really process the emotional content, then our clairvoyant abilities really becomes a good tool when we talk about the higher order psychic energetic abilities, where we can work with emotional content using our clairvoyant abilities to get to the core of it right away, to dig into the emotional pattern or the other worlds that our emotional patterns are connected to. But that's some of the other course material I will dive into at some point later after the basics here. So the chakras hold regressed genetics too. The mental layer holds regressed genetics from the Raptoid races. These are the humanoid races of the fifth cycle. The astral layers, and that is the emotional field, goes into the astral. Again, remember the trinity structure: emotional, subconscious, astral, fourth dimension. The astral layer holds regressed genetics from the avian races. Very important to understand that one. That's typically the golden. Raptoid blue, avian golden. The etheric layer, as I talked about, holds genetics from the regressed insectoid races. These can both be purple as well as green. The organic form holds genetics from regressed mammal races, which are re-engineered to respond to the chakra system. That's technically and most often the purple magenta frequency that you see. And these colors, when we talk about how come that Raptoid genetics are perceived within the frequency spectrum from our mind's eye and our understanding of energies as blue, that's because they operate on the frequency fence that goes with the blue light technology, that goes with the blue frequency spectrum. We have the avian genetics that are connected to the emotional field, technically build the foundation of it, because the Syrian A's are mainly mammal avian races. So they have the golden hue to them, and that is also perceived sometimes as yellow, which connects to, if we go with the chakra colors, the solar plexus. But it can also go into golden. That's when it transformed into the heart energies, but there we'll get this mammal hue to it when we lift it from the avian level into the mammal level, and technically have restored the Syrian A races as they were supposed to be originally mammal, that were where they would have ended up in if they had completed their progression cycles correctly. The Raptoid races, they were also supposed to become mammals again. So the insectoid and the avian Raptoids, their goal is to become mammals and then become either humanoid or true human. So we are here to understand why there are mammals on our planets or animals, because that's their way to try. And if they have become insectoid, they are working. For instance, cows have a lot of flies around them. Avian insectoids, that's a fly. Or they have other critters, or they eat the soil, or they eat different forms of insectoid beings that comes into their intestinal system. They become part of the cow that gives them the configuration of being a mammal. So these are some of the technologies that are being used that are part of the mammals on our planet for these races. The reptoids are no longer interested in doing the mammal bridging. They just want to go directly to the humanoids, and that's why they are collaborated with some of the other humanoid races from the parallel systems to do that, and that's where they have become the scavengers. So we are having these different groups. The avian races are typically the mammal. Avian ones are typically the ones behind the reseeing of the fourth that became part of the councils there, that later became the brotherhoods, that later succumbed to the colonizers and came under the control of the reptoids, and then began what we call the dark brotherhoods, and left wing and right wing in the dark brotherhoods. The dark brotherhoods are affiliated with the Atlantean folding programs. We have the insectoids that are, most of them are slaves to whatever race that are controlling them. And that's why when we talk about why humans are surrounded by insects, that is again because they are also enslaved, so they are part of the inside the enclosure. So whatever is inside the enclosure is administered by something else. It's under the controllers, the colonizers, or whatever other forms of C's that we can come up with. So I'm here talking about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We have the letter that goes with what we call the A to the Alpha to Omega programs that are under the different groups that have a different symbol, that have a different letter to them. And these are part of the colonizing races. They are no longer, most of these groups are gone now. So the alphabet is technically falling apart, to put it that way. But new things are coming in play. So the organic form holds genetics, as I talked about, from the mammal races, because all of these other groups that are partaking in us doing the transformational work for them while they are living in their own artificial realities. So that's why we need to get rid of these regressed genetics, as explained in the book Chirology, how to activate and clean this up, as well as in the advanced clearing work course material, where you will learn how to do that. So that's not part of this material. But all of this stands in the way of your own higher order abilities. And what I want to say here is that if you have Raptoid genetics that are in your mental field, that will technically more than often create dark snakes in your brain, especially if you're male. Males have a lot of Raptoid Syrian genetics in their mind field, and they are often very quickly, due to the the Y chromosome that's connected to the abyss, very quickly turned into dark snake configuration that are part of the male processing. So that's one of the things that they need to clear out. And that's why for males, the Buddhist line of idea, working with compassion and loving kindness to activate the heart field, is one of the most important things for males to work with. The female can have reptoid genetics, but she has the kind of a reptoid avian Pleiadian version of it that are typically connected to the scavengers, and that connects to the tribal consciousness and artificial fourth programs, often as breeder programs and other similar type of progenitor programs that allows these groups to use the female body to reproduce themselves in different ways and forms, whether it's inside this reality or other realities. So we are having these different groups that are controlling the different genders on our planet in all species. Okay, so that's important to understand that. So again, when we talk about the regress genetics from the avians, that's connecting us to the artificial fourth, where that has been used, and clogging as well as distorting our heart field within different types of spiritual programs. And if people are not aligned there, then within different reality programs that are connected to love and human relationships in whatever way. So females again have a higher connectivity due to avian genetics in their heart fields, whereas males have more serine genetics in their heart fields, and by that process emotionality differently, unless they choose to work extensively with it and turning into loving kindness, where they begin to activate what's left of mammal genetics there. Females have mammal genetics as well as the heart field. That's why we are so good, quote unquote, moms. Not that we have to have an offspring, but we are inclusive to a certain degree. I know there are females that are not, but we're just on a general population. We are more emotional. We are more thinking about the tribe. We are more thinking about what others feel and think about us. We are very eager to become part of the tribe, to fit into the tribe. And if we don't, we have a lot of self-destructive manners to do so, whereas males are more competitive. They are more run by the testosterone. They have more adrenal gland production that leads to more kind of fight ways of being, where females are more oriented toward flight or retraction. They are more out there, ongoing, spatial, conquering abilities that goes with the reptoid genetics. And reptoid genetics are typically connected to the adrenal gland as well as the amygdala. So if females have less reptoid genetics in their brain capacity and more avian genetics, they will flee more than attack. Again, the larger amount of mammal genetics that's there, the more complacent, the more docile we can become, the more we are eager to just be domesticated, to give consent, as we see it in animals, and onward and so forth, unless they have reptoid genetics and then become predators. There are all of these combinations, but that's part of the chakra system, or the artificially inserted fields that are part of the holographic overlay, all depending on what level it is on. The holographic overlay are holding the artificial fourth and the artificial fifth dimensional energies, as you see on the illustration on page 16. So the regress genetics in the chakras were activated by the mantras and symbols that were inserted into the chakras or used in the chakra activation work, linking the lower order fields to the less functional programs. And people who have worked with the chakras, you have become part of the artificial fourth dimensional spiritual programs, and you need to clear your chakra system and your energy system out of these programs. These are distortion fields. They are astrally based. They are not really linking you up to anything other than what is captured in the astral plane. It has been highly functional to operate in the astral plane, but that's just another dead end, to put it that way. It was made this way so if a human did get the idea of something higher and wanted to do the uplifting, the chakra system, the programs would kick in and lead the human astray into the less functional programs, quote unquote, astral spiritual programs, and by that prevent the true energy system from activating. Okay, So now we are on, I know it's a quick blast through, but that's because I've talked a lot about the chakra system in the YouTube podcast series that's out for free, as well as Whole Integration Class 6. I don't really want to go further into it because that's not the point of this course material. This is blasting through the theory and the sciences behind the high order senses to understand how you get there, and all the deeper levels of the energy work that you must do, that's actually up for you to do. So how do you do it with this information? For those of you who have not worked with the chakra system yet, that have not worked with the inserted TGs and the artificial or the alien inserted technology, as explained in the Advanced Clearing Work Course 4, you begin with the basic 4D energy work. You get connected to your physicality. You get connected using hands-on to sense your skin, to sense your body, to sense how the heart feels, the mammal genetics, how they feel in kindness. You can put on the golden pink energy into your hands when you put the double hand position on your heart field. You can envision that you activate the mammal genetics over the avian genetics. You can do the activation of the avian genetics and the mammal genetics in a combination of a pink or a rosa colored golden orb that you impose on your heart field, activated by intention of the mammal genetics and the avian genetics, with the purpose of clearing them out. You can use some of the processes I have shown in the Tarology book. I give instructions how to do this in the Tarology book, combining it with the basic 4D energy work, combining it with the horizontal clearing work, combining it with the advanced clearing work classes, combining these things together so you understand the many layers of your energy work. In that, having the intention and the sciences behind your clearing work. Approach this from a scientific level and not from a frustrated emotional level. I want this, but how am I to do this? I can't do this. But go in and say, okay, now I know the sciences. This is very complex. Study the sciences as if you would everything else you were to learn. Think about it as if you were to learn to grow a garden. You would do the studies of how to learn to grow a garden. Or if you were to become a nutritionist that teaching other people how to eat healthy, how would you structure that teaching for others to learn to eat healthy? How would you make the architecture? How would you make the plan of your new garden? How would you, if you were to build a house, what would be the processes of you building a house? You need the architecture, you need the understanding of how to build a house, how to make the garden work, how to circulate the soil, and onward and so forth. Approach your own energy work from that angle. Study my material, take notes, write down, make illustrations, put in some kind of, do your own build up every week where you say, well, I begin with 1 hour of the basic energy work videos where I look at the basic energy work videos and do what Randy shows there. I do it when Randy's doing it with the basic energy work videos. By that, you're technically tapping into the energies I provide there. You work with that. Every day you'd say, well, I do 1 hour of basic energy work. I do 1 hour of studies of a segment of the class material. And you do psychological work, whether it's in contemplation or it's in inner energy work or it's in silent observation, or you go and see a psychotherapist. You study books that supports the material that you're here studying. You arrange your entire life around these studies, and you will say, I can't do that. I haven't got the time for it. And I just say, I did it. Others have done it. So of course you can do it too. It's a matter of prioritizing. It's a matter of saying that's more important than watching the movie at night. It's more important than seeing the checking in on Instagram. It's more important than the news. It's whatever. If you have to go to work and you have to come home, you arrange your life so that when you come home from work and the hours you have in the evening, you make sure you get food. And then you do the rest of the evening, even though you're tired. Well, you come home, you go into meditation in an hour, clean out the energies of the day, clean out the the energies of work. Clear yourself out of all this distortion you have picked up and all the interference. And then you go into finding out, okay, how am I to arrange the remaining 3 hours I have before I go to bed? What's important in these 3 hours? What am I to look at in these 3 hours? And yes, you're tired, and yes, you're drained, but this is again where you're going to say, okay, I need to arrange my life. What's important here? I need so and so amount of money so I can pay my bills. But once you have done that, is it perhaps more prudent to find an apartment that is smaller? Is it more prudent to arrange your life in a way so you don't have so large bills to pay? Do you have some kind of excess what you call it, you're consuming more, you're buying more, you are using money mindlessly here and there and everywhere. Go through your finances, go through, make a budget, arrange with your bank to withdraw the money over. I have what's called a budget account in the Danish bank, where I take all of my expenses, all the expenses I have from my rent and electricity and water and heat and insurance and everything that goes with having a place to live. And they come in different droplets over the course of years. So I have this budget account where I literally put all of the bills I have to pay. They're being paid automatically. And from another account where I have my income, the payment for whatever I'm doing as part of my business, there is drawn as all of the 12 months of bills that I have are then leveled out. And then if you say, well, 1 month I pay this, another pay that, and whatever, you're paying it manually. But due to the budget account, I'm leveling it out over 12 months. I take all of my bills, I sum it up and see what's the average. And that I put into my budget account every month. It's drawn automatically. And then it's paid. My bills are paid when it's needed, because there is always the amount of money on that account so I can pay all my bills. So I don't have to worry about that. What I have to worry about is the income and how I can make an income to pay that average, and at the same time also pay food so I can get food on the table. So that's part of everyday life. That's very difficult to get around that, but we can arrange ourselves in ways so it runs as automatically as it can. Similarly, if you still have to go to work, then you must do what is possible for you to do. For those of you who have families and kids and what have you, you must again look into what is possible for me to do, how much can I achieve, and then say, well, I can only achieve so much every day. So the only thing you can be there is being patient. And also knowing that the amount of effort that you put in will have the output that is similar to the input that you put into your energy work. So the lesser you put in, the lesser the output. And the more likely you are to be recirculated and into different timelines where whatever you have built up during that little portion of time you had will then be wiped from you, taken from you. So that's again where some of us can do a lot of work because we began after having had kids and they are grown up and out there happy in the world, and others that begin early on choose to do it before they get kids and suddenly and as well choose not to have kids, and by that focus on their energy work entirely and not become parents. And others try to do this while being parents and part of the fall cycle, and some of the ones that are doing that are typically under some of the hybrid programs. So there are pros and cons to everything. Nothing is simple. But it all comes down to patience and understanding of how far can we go? How much can we go? What is achievable? What is realistic? And be patient with what we can do. And it will take time. Remember, I began to service with this after I had already done very focused inner work and healing work and clearing work and past life works for 10 years. Before I even began coming out and in 2013 and teaching this on YouTube. I had already made a book in Danish, which is published, but it's in Danish. I had already had lectures. I had already had my psychological training. I had already become a psychotherapist. I was almost done being a mom. My entire life had been uphill, difficult situations, collapsing in different forms of negative self-destructive patterns, which I repaired and built up. So my whole life has been oriented. I was born into being different. Where many of you were born into being okay, and then suddenly begins this work, and that takes time to undo. as we said in psychotherapy, if you have a bad habit, the number of years you have had the bad habit, the number of years it takes to transform it into something else. It's all about rearranging who and what you are. So be patient with yourself. So the overlay energy system to keep us within the regressive spiral, aka the chakra system. We are here on page 6. So again, remember the overlay energy system is both the one on page 16, but it's also the chakra system. So technically we have 2 overlays, but we have one that is inserted to connect us to the artificial 4th and 5th via the AIT, the alien inserted technology, and we have the chakra system that is connecting the body elemental to the 3 lower fields and keeping them functional. So to really be able to get to the body elemental, you have to collapse the chakra system. And to the left on the little illustration I have made, we have the mental field, the astral field, the mental, astral, and elemental field. And here I call it the elemental field instead of the biofield. And that's the etheric field, but that's because the biofield is both connected to the etheric field that is part of the astral plane, that is part of the distortion energies that are connected to the elementals in the racial grids. And that's why we can have this physical form that is walking around on the planet inside the enclosure. So with that, you see the 7-layer chakra system that is there, that goes with the root, the hara, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the inner or the third eye, and the crown. They are part of the 7 etheric chakras that goes with the biofield or the elemental field. Important to understand that. We have the 7 chakras that goes with the astral field and the emotional field. We have the 5 higher level mental chakras that are not depicted here. They begin to unfold once you have activated the throat. The first 3 chakras of the 5 chakras of the mental field are the throat, the inner, and the crown. They are the foundation of that. There are 2 extra chakras that you can only activate once you begin to activate the triangle in your head. That is combined by the throat and the inner and the Altamaya. So one of the extra chakras is the Altamaya, and that's the one that connects to the biofield. And then you have the crown as it is within the artificial programs that needs to be transformed and released, which will then release the seal that's in the root chakra. And that's where you most will begin to connect to the abyss. So you have to be ready to really go there. You can't force that to happen, because once you begin to activate what's beneath your feet, the grid level of the template that are for most people connected to either the abyss, that's mostly males, or the underworld, that's mostly females. Well, that's connected to our root chakra, that affects our heart field, that affects our mind field. The abyss affects via the root field, the Altamaya, and into the mind field of males and connecting them to the dark energies of the 3rd cycle that creates the snakes in the head, whereas the female is connected via the heart and the root chakra to the underworld, which then gives her different forms of negative perverted energies from the underworld, of some of the critters that are down there. And I'm saying it that way, but there are a lot of shells, there's a lot of ghosts, there's a lot of things down there you don't really want to look at unless you have reached the level where you begin to clear your root chakra. So, and the root chakra is an overlay to the root vortex. The root vortex is the ones that connect to the racial grids. So the chakra system is there to connecting us to everything that keeps us stuck in the reincarnation cycles. And our clearing work is to get rid of everything that prevents us from progressing and doing our elevation and clearing work out of the outer domain systems and falling grids and falling networks and whatever's going on this planet. It's difficult to cover all of the layers that we are connected to, because it's also up to the individuality of your energy system. And that's some of the reason why I again offer the whole energy system assessment, where I go in and say, this is what you have for now, work with that, and then we can go to the next level, as well as joint energy work. So we hereby understand that females have a tendency to connect to the underworld and pull things in there that will clog their heart field and make them angry and sad and cry and self-destructive, whereas males are connected more to the abyss and the third cycle, superiority, warring, galactic, overseers, feeling so much better than the rest of the human population, making them a little bit too cocky and a little bit too over egotistical, thinking that they can handle everything, that they can fix everything, which is a typical show of being under the influence of a snake that feels it's superior and has everything under control and is a great teacher and it knows how to say everything and explain everything, and it's so much more better in its clarity and its mental processes than the females that are clearly volatile and completely emotionally absorbed into whatever processes they are having. That's the dark end of it. So how can we transform that into a positive? Well, males go in and work with the heart field, activate that one, clear it out, clear out all these negative thought systems in their head, become more humble, become more empathic, become more sensitive, learn to work with their emotions, develop the spectrum of emotions, combining it with their mind field, and from the golden energy of the heart field, making their mind, the neural network, golden as well, begin to create the golden spine, activate what we could say the higher order Syrian versions of genetics, from where they can really begin to transform the dark energies of the abyss and get it out of their biofield, and by that clearing out the root slowly but surely. It also goes in transforming the sexual energies that are connected to the abyss as well. In males, it's also connected to the females. We have the underworld infusions that goes with the breeder programs and some of the horrific stuff that was done to the Pleiadians. The Syrians genetics lead the male energies into the abyss and some of the galactic wars, which means sexuality for males are often connected to aggression or conquering or feeling strong and masculine. That's part of that energy. The females are into more mammal-oriented, tribal community, things that in that way, the whole makeup of us being penetrated there put us in a submissive position, just to put it as it is. But it puts us also into a receiving, caring. So our version of changing our sexuality as well as changing our heart field is to be empowered in our receiving and giving, so that we become healing in who and what we are. So we begin to admit this healing, caring energy, but at the same time also have the power to put up our limitations and not limitations, put up our this is what I will accept, this is what I won't accept. I'm a strong individual. I can still do what I need to do. I don't need to be mansplained. I don't need to have things explained. I have the power to be in my life, but I also have the power to be receptive and to give and to be part of this relationship where I can both give and receive without any expectations, but I can also give and receive. That builds my progression dynamics. And the male will then learn that as he shifts out of his Y chromosome and into the X chromosome. So the female has a distorted X chromosome that leads to the underworld, negative, volatile, female, over emotional, submissive, I don't know anything configuration. And the opposite is the original fourth cycle, teamwork, team leader, being the one that takes care of the tribe, be the one that knows how to lead the way, be the one that leads the progression dynamics, inclusivity, in for the highest good of the many, in the understanding of everything that we should be as humans on this planet, doing the outer domain clearing work. And the X chromosome of males can be transformed into being this. They are technically using the Y chromosome to push their own X chromosome into the negative version of the female X chromosome, which means that they often link up to females that have that feature of the negative X chromosome. So their X chromosome remains negative. But if they team up with a girl that has transformed into the positive X chromosome, they can begin to transform their X chromosome into the same fourth cycle correct type of progression dynamics. Also there become inclusive, become the leader, become the role model, become the one that shows the way, become the ones that can lift the tribal energies into the great heart field, expansion field, and then begin to transform the spatial energies, the outer domain, into a more inclusive space where everyone's are equal. And there you begin to understand the female do the inner space, the males do the outer space. And if we work together in the correct fourth cycle tribal communities, we have the inner outer human that are then connected correctly with the inner outer spatial energies as part of the progression couple. That is what we are supposed to do, where we then unfold our true potentials as part of the progression cycles. So this is part of some of the things that we need to reconfigure to. And the heart field is the fourth cycle. The brain field is the fifth cycle. The biofield is the outer domain. That's the reconfiguration it needs to be reconfigured into, so it matches the original outer domain density 1 configuration. And from there, we can begin to clear the grid levels of the template, disconnect to the past timelines we've been part of. We do that via our heart field, the chiasm, where we operate through progression dynamics to clear out what is no longer of use, to transform what is of use to its highest potentiality, using the progression sciences, as I explained in the transition science course material, developing our brain field through the higher order sciences, which is what we begin both in the progression work, but also with the higher order sciences, which I'm more and more breaching into. So you begin to work with your brain field as you're supposed to, but that's only possible once you've activated your heart field, released yourself from the past timelines as well as the artificial ones, and then you will begin to work with the library level of the template. Most of the 6-dimensional levels of the library and upwards have been removed. That was removed in 2020. Everything that's beneath is still, or below is still part of our template, is still part of our holographic energetic architecture, and we can still work with it and tap into it and progress it. So the whole point of getting rid of the chakra system is that once you get rid of that, you then tap directly into the body elemental. So the chakra system, working through your chakras, via your chakras, to merge or to get access to a full active cognizant level of awareness, where you work with your peripheral nervous system and the emotional field, where you work with the central nervous system and your brain and your biofield, where you know what to do there. And that takes an enormous amount of time. I just said blah, 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 blah. That has taken me 20 years to achieve that understanding, that level of knowledge. So the chakra system is one of the first things that you need to clear out. And hands-on, put hands-on your heart field, or the heart chakra, and see if there's an overlay there, and then begin to remove it, begin to pull it away. See it as energy cords, as old technology, or what have you. Work with your throat chakra, pull away what's in the front of your throat chakra. Do the inner, pull away what's in the front of the inner. Do the solar plexus, pull away what's in front of the solar plexus. Do the 4D basic energy work, and that will get you quite far in the work of clearing the chakra system. So with that little extended podcast here, I will end this one, and we will continue in the next podcast. Thank you.